Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to the Signal Live. We always appreciate all of you joining us every second and fourth Thursday. And this is the Signal Live State of the People TV. And it's an effort that has grown out of our State of the People movement. We really got things going about a year ago now, maybe even just over a year ago. And again, we're glad to have you join us. We're going to be talking about a number of issues tonight. We're going to be introducing our new addition to the show format, which will be our news roundtable. We'll be talking about the war in Iran, amongst other things. We're also going to be talking about affordability as well tonight. So stay locked in right here at the Signal Live, where we're tuning in to the pulse of the people. All right. We're going to go ahead and get things going and deal with some of the issues that are front and center right now, and a lot of issues on our minds, from the war to the SAVE Act to the most recent Texas primaries, and whether or not Oscars will remain so white. And going forward, we're going to be talking about these issues at the top of the show as we bring you a breakdown of all of these important news stories, and many of them aren't being covered by legacy mainstream media. And they're not talking about it, of course, in the way we're going to talk about it here on the Signal Live. And these are the things that actually matter to us. We're joined by a couple of guests who are just the right people to discuss these issues. And also, I call them good friends. She is the editor-in-chief and founding mother, I should say, of the 19th, an independent nonprofit newsroom reporting on gender, politics, policy, and power. And she is current Madam President of the National Association of Black Journalists, Errin Haines. Errin, welcome to the Signal Live. Maybe I'm ahead of myself. We don't have Errin yet, but I tell you, we do have our dear brother, who is one of our top political and movement strategists in the country. He led Color of Change for 13 years. Our brother Rashad Robinson joins us tonight on the Signal Live. Hey, brother, how are you?
It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well, Rashad. So, Rashad, first of all, let's deal with what's on everybody's mind, if for no other reason than confusion. What are your thoughts about this war with Iran and how it's impacting the Black community and how the Black community is thinking about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a thing that we have to sort of recognize when anything like this happens is, follow the money. And that's always in the sort of conversation about profiteering, about corporate power, about where the sort of money comes from and who's going to win in the end, always has to be, I think, part of the analysis. Because Black Americans, Black people are disproportionately asked to sort of engage in these wars, fight these wars. And then we see sort of who profits from them. And then overseas, we see sort of what gets destroyed, the families, the communities. And so, given where we are at right now in this country, given sort of the Epstein files, given where we are with the economy, given where we are heading into an election, this sort of attempt to go at war is both a distraction, but it is part of the playbook, the authoritarian playbook. It is part of the playbook of using Black and brown and poor people's bodies to engage overseas. And part of the work of our movements, is to both help to make that legible and clear for people, but also to sort of hold accountable the elected officials that we put in office, and to engage in the accountability that's going to be required so that we show who's profiteering from this, we show who's winning from this, and we make that sort of very clear in our work. We have to be able to tell a full story, not just about Donald Trump, but all of the forces that are enabling him.
Well, and also Rashad, I don't know if you've had a chance to clock this, but even some of his MAGA influencers, including some of those who have very prominent
Yeah.
platform, they're over this too. They're saying that's not really what we expected you to do, Donald Trump.
I think we're seeing that, but I want us to urge us to be careful because we've seen this moment again where the we've seen folks in his MAGA base, uh, be upset about a thing. We think that there's a break in their coalition, and somehow, when it all comes down to it, they find a way to come back together. They find a central way, whether it's their shared sort of alignment around anti-blackness or replacement theory or some of these other things that they're going to get through the judges he's put in office. And so we can't just rely on defection or that the potential for defections among his MAGA base. We have to be able to also narrate for people and present a thing about why folks join us. People might be mad at Trump and not like our side in return. And I've said that about immigration as well. People
Right.
might not like what he's doing in places like Minneapolis or Los Angeles. And it doesn't mean that they're going to side now with the Democrats or the left on these issues. And so we can't just rely on his people being upset by something that he does that they may not no longer sort of like, because he's going to give them a bunch of other things. And as long as he sort of, in the end of the day, has that sort of playbook of going back to attacking Black folks, going back to attacking brown folks, going back to attacking women and trans folks, and everyone else who we can put on the outside, that playbook sort of comes back together when it becomes two binary choices in an election cycle.
We do have now one of the founders of the 19th, editor at large, and current president, our Madam President of the NABJ, Errin Haines, with us. Errin, welcome. Rashad and I were just talking about the war. Want to get your thoughts in terms of coverage and what that's doing. The gas price is so high. I tried to book a flight the other day. Flights cost $1,200, so I'm gonna need to borrow some money from you. So,
Listen,
what are your
I ain't
thoughts?
got it. I ain't got it. And it's so funny. This is what people are talking about, right? I mean, the war in Iran may feel like an abstract, faraway thing that is happening, but gas prices, right? That is a kitchen table issue that people are experiencing. They're feeling that. And that is a lot of their relationship to this war that is happening in Iran and how it is directly affecting them, right? Like in the same way that people who are rich, pay attention to what's happening with the stock market. People who don't have money are absolutely paying attention to what the price of gas is. And you ask anybody, right? In any of your friends, any of your family members, how much did you just pay to fill up your pump? I promise you they know the answer. I promise. I was literally at the nail salon the other day, and that was the topic of conversation. My nail tech was asking me, how much did you just pay for gas? Because he's wondering if I'm somebody who's going to be able to keep coming back to the nail salon. Customers are having to make decisions about what, am I going to pay for this kind of small luxury, or do I need to fill up my tank to get to work, to get to, to drop off my kids and do the things that I need to do in my day-to-day life. So I think, as we continue to see what is happening with gas prices and what that means for the other choices people are having to make in their lives, like that is the thing. In addition to whatever other feelings they may have about what is happening with the war, that is the thing that is impacting them. So often our politics are personal. Democracy is personal for people. And that is a way that we are seeing that show up right now.
Yeah. And Errin, he even posted on his True Social today how with United States having so much oil, that the rise in gas prices is a good thing. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, and that's not something that the average American can relate to, right? I mean, sure, maybe that benefits our federal government, but like that is not something that is trickling down to the average person in their household. I mean, I think you heard a similar sentiment shortly before the war started, when the president was in his State of the Union address talking about gas prices being lower, right? Boasting about seeing something like $1.85 gas prices in Des Moines or somewhere recently that he had been on the trail, and in fact, that was not even the case then or in that place. So I think it speaks to kind of a blind spot at best and a tone deafness at worst in terms of what this administration's relationship is to everyday Americans and what they mean when they say that their personal economy may not be doing great, even as he continues to talk about how great the American economy is doing.
And we also can't allow this to distract from other issues. I mean, I think we would agree he's trying to harm America, if not the world. But they got this act called the SAVE Act. That's not going to save anything. We can't allow the war to distract us from what that might mean and what that might do in terms of voting rights.
Well, and he's not allowing it to distract. I mean, he is literally, the White House had yet another statement today talking, extolling how great the Save America Act is going to be for this country, how Congress must pass the Save America Act, because we saw that, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, was saying, he's not willing to kind of jettison the 60 majority filibuster that it would take to really push this thing through in the Senate. The Save America Act has already passed the House. It passed in February, and he is calling for even more pieces to be added to the Save America Act, saying, mail-in balloting basically needs to be non-existent, and also that, more and some anti-trans legislation that he's trying to add to this bill. And these basically are, I think, non-starters for the Republicans that already were reluctant, right, to move forward with this act. And I actually just wrote about the Save America Act in my newsletter, The Amendment. In my column, I talk about the SAVE Act because it galvanized so many people, specifically married women, and might I add, upper and middle class white women who, previously had not thought of themselves as people who could be disenfranchised, right, at the ballot box. But they saw the Save America Act and immediately thought, wait, what does this mean for me? I could be targeted because I, am having to prove citizenship by showing a birth certificate or passport that may not match my new married name, may not line up with the legal name, that I had on my birth certificate or previous documents that I would need to prove citizenship. And so they saw that, a lot of times, and this is what I said in my column, a lot of times you have people, democracy can feel theoretical, it can feel abstract for people, right? But when people see that their rights, voting rights in this case, are being threatened, that is something that is not acceptable for them. That is when democracy becomes very personal for them, and they are motivated to act. This is why you have thousands of people calling their senators and saying, vote no on the Save America Act. But we see, look, Black folks know when, there are these laws that are, floated as things that are meant to, protect elections and prevent voter fraud. By the way, voting for people who are not legal citizens, that is not legal. That is not legal in state or federal elections already. So like the idea that this is a thing that is needed in a new law, that's a solution in search of a problem, right? We know that. So, right. Meanwhile, you're adding these additional barriers, these additional hurdles for people to prove something that would already need to be true for them to be able to participate in this process. There is no widespread voter fraud in this country. We know that.
Rashad Robinson, can we stop the SAVE Act?
Yeah, I believe we can do a lot of things. And I think that, they're going to have to do a number of things in the Senate, like deal with the filibuster in a way that they've been reluctant to. But they can also get the SAVE Act through. And so this will be a question about how much energy and force, how much engagement, like I talked about enablers before, right? The Trump administration is supported and held up by a whole set of pillars in society, from corporate America and others. And how do we sort of engage that in a way that actually puts the consequences of this type of action, not just at the hands of political leaders, but of others that surround them, and continue to sort of make sure that brand is connected. There is a lot that we can do from an activist perspective to sort of stop this. And I think we have to narrate for people that even if we stop the SAVE Act, Trump has not been doing a whole lot of legislating. He's been using the DOJ. He's been using the Department of Defense, right? He's not, he's not asking Congress to approve him going to war. He's not asking Congress to approve him going into Fulton County and taking ballots. Like, so the fact of the matter is that no matter what happens with the SAVE Act, there's going to be a deep level of attempts, and there's going to be a lot of effort to keep us from the polls in 2026 and beyond. And this is going to be a dress rehearsal in 2026. How far can they push before they break the system, before we uprise, right? Each of these things strategically for them is a dress rehearsal. Minneapolis was a dress rehearsal, right? How far can they push a community before it pushes back, before it determines that it's no longer acceptable and they're not going to take enough? And strategically, we have to sort of use these moments to be able to test out our strategies as well. Our resistance strategies, our pushback strategies. It's going to require more of us to engage in new ways. But the SAVE Act is absolutely something we should pay attention to, but we should recognize that that any legislation is just a piece of how they're going to use the federal government and all the tools of the federal government to make it much harder for people to engage and vote, because their policies are not important, their policies are not popular, and their track record is not popular. And because they can't run on their policies and they can't run on their track record, they're going to have to find a way to cheat.
And no question about it. In the past week, we've celebrated the ascension of one who combated voter suppression by being one who registered more voters than anyone in history. Of course, we're talking about the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
Brothers and sisters, what time is it? It's nation time. It's nation time for all of the tribes from Boston to Birmingham, Mississippi to Minnesota, San Diego to Seattle, and Galveston to Gary. What time is it? About 13 black congressmen, 1 U.S. senator, 81 black mayors, 677 black school board members, 873 black elected officials in 11 southern states, 2,000 black elected and appointed officials in legislatures and government. What time is it?
Our friend Jasmine Crockett didn't win in Texas, but I think she's another beneficiary of Reverend Jackson's work. Many of the elected officials that have won office since the 80s won and were able to run and encouraged to run because of the inspiration of his two presidential campaigns. Errin, what are your thoughts about the Texas primary? And even though Jasmine did not win, Representative Crockett did not win, there are some conversations that a Democrat could still win that Senate seat, that Democrat being Tallarico.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it is an interesting year to think about, especially with the passing of Reverend Jackson and all that he was able to do, right, in terms of shaping our politics and our political imagination, right, about what was possible in this country, and the kinds of coalitions that Black folks in particular would need to win statewide, would need to win nationally, right? He laid so much of the groundwork, so much of the foundation for that. And I would also add, that Black journalists were covering so much of what he did at NABJ. We put out a resolution for Reverend Jackson's passing because we recognized his commitment also to helping to amplify the importance of the voices of Black journalists and telling not just the story of Black America, but the American story. And so we appreciate that. Now, you have a year, obviously we saw what just happened with Jasmine Crockett in Texas, but I mean, I would even pivot forward to Illinois. We've got a primary for the U.S. Senate on Tuesday, and you have 2 Black women in that state contesting for that primary nomination, and obviously ultimately a win in November. This is the idea that you could have 3 Black women running for Senate, that is not something that in recent years people even thought was possible. 3 qualified, talented, capable people, right? So challenging these notions of electability. I think that that's important to note. The gains that they make, even regardless of the outcome, is something to ponder, because we know what the headwinds are for Black people, for Black women to be running statewide. And so that they are saying that they are putting themselves up for these offices, I think speaks to just the idea that they think that they are viable. I think that does matter. And I think that just as Reverend Jackson's candidacy was groundbreaking and moved things forward in our politics and, like I said, our political imagination, I do think as the campaigns of Black women for these statewide and higher offices becomes normalized, that can continue to expand our political imagination.
No question about it. Folks, we're short on time. There's one other topic I want to cover. So, Rashad, I'll give you the word on this. Ryan Coogler, Centers. Are we still looking at Oscars so white, the term April Rain coined, or could he actually get Best Director?
Ryan deserves it. He has proven himself to be a critical, a commercial, success up and down the line. I so appreciated the way that he's told stories, but also challenged the business model of Hollywood. And so when you challenge the business model of Hollywood, there are going to be people that may not like that. And so, but he's walked in that way. He's also walked hand in hand with movements. I've on a number of occasions, actually Ryan once upon a time did me a favor and showed up on a staff call to just thank the Color of Change team after some election work. And Michael B. Jordan traveled with us to knock on doors in Atlanta when he was filming Just Mercy in Atlanta, playing Brian Stevenson, and knocked on doors during the Stacey Abrams, her first run for governor. And so I just also, for Black folks, I'm always, sometimes we look at these big Hollywood cultural moments, and I don't want to divorce it from who these people are and how they show up in the world and why we want to show up for them, and how they have told stories that hopefully help us see a different world and a different set of possibilities for ourselves, and just connecting that to Reverend Jackson. And I would just be amiss to say that, the possibility model that he created for so many to believe that they were somebody, that they could run, that they could achieve in the face of structures that were designed to keep us out. And then through his run, change those structures, change how the primary system worked, force changes in how polling worked, right? Before that, the Gallup was using this term, this thing, if a Negro was qualified, would you vote for him? And they wouldn't change that because of longitudinal integrity that they had sort of in the polling process. And they had to figure out new ways. He forced changes to so much of how politics was covered and brought new people into the process. And between 84 and 88, registered more Black people and changed the CBC, changed the possibilities. There's only reason why you have a President Clinton is because Jesse Jackson ran, and in that process registered Black people that made it possible for some of those states to do what they did in that era. And I think that there's just a story of what it takes to step into a place that isn't designed for you, whether you are a Ryan Coogler, whether you are a Jesse Jackson. Do your very best. Engage in ways that are new and innovative, and in the process, open the door and hold the door open for the people that come behind you. And I hope that can be a story that all of us hold in this moment, regardless of what the Academy Awards decides to do. What Ryan Coogler has continued to do is change the way these things work, and that will be better for all of us.
Beautifully said. I want to thank you both, Rashad Robinson and Errin Haines. Errin says she's going to loan us some money, Rashad. So
I'm always waiting on that check. Don't make me have to come to Atlanta to get it, though.
Misinformation. No.
Misinformation. I know that's right.
I'm already counting on this donation. I'll send you the link, Errin.
Yeah. Okay.
Love you both. Thank you for joining us on the Signal Live. Okay. All right, folks. Not only do we broadcast here, but we write some things as well. They're known as the Black Papers, information that's important to all of us. And we're going to hear about one of the Black Papers from our own Brittany Packnett Cunningham.
Hey y'all, Brittany Packnett Cunningham here, creative EP of State of the People TV, and I know that every single day we are asking ourselves really important questions. Questions like lemon pepper wet or lemon pepper dry, salt or sugar in grits, and most importantly, catfish and spaghetti, a meal or nah? Now, after y'all argue about that in the chat, which I know you're about to do, head on over to stateoftheppl.com/blackpapers. Papers like Rooted Resilience, Black Land Stewardship in the Face of Climate Crisis actually take on the really important questions, like how are we going to protect Black farmers, Black foodways, and Black land ownership? The Black Papers don't just tell us what the problem is. They tell us what the solution should be. Things like Black climate sovereignty zones and Black farmer cooperative grants are just a slice of what the Black Papers offer us from preeminent scholars and academics, organizers, activists, and everyday people charting the future for ourselves. The Black Papers is where it's at, y'all, I promise you. So visit stateoftheppl.com/blackpapers right now. And remember, sugar don't belong in grits.
I thought that was automatic. Okay. Can you all hear me now? I didn't realize I was muted. All right. I thought that was automatic. Forgive me. As I was saying, and thank you to Brittany Packnett Cunningham, stateofthepeople.com/black papers. As I said, they even made me write one. Check them out. We're going to stay in the context of affordability. The war is hurting that even more, but affordability was an issue even before the war. The war is making it worse. So we're going to bring our two guests on. Do we have both of our guests, y'all? I think we do. DaMareo Cooper, co-executive director of Popular Democracy, a network of 47 grassroots organizations, is joining us as well.
It's good to be here.
Oh, you went muted again.
Yeah.
You're muted, Red.
I don't know why this thing keep muting me. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. We'll
Okay.
work out the bugs.
We got
and
you back.
DaMareo, thank you. Popular DaMareo, did I see your folks were you some of your folks in Selma with us this weekend?
Yes, sir. We were there. Yeah. We were just there. Yeah.
It was so much going on. I can't, so many people.
Oh, I understand. It was a lot going on.
Yeah. No, glad to have you with us. Taifa, let's begin with you from Demos's perspective and from your perspective. What is the state of affordability?
Reb, you're muted again.
Why did I keep muting?
Yeah, something keeps muting me, y'all, and I'm not doing it, so I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, Taifa.
Yes.
2024. Everybody complained about affordability, and that was one of the issues that allegedly swept Donald Trump in. We know there was some other hanky-panky, but that was one of the issues. where does that stand today? And are things any better than they were in 2024?
No, not at all. And I think to the point of some of the things that Errin and Rashad said earlier, I mean, the pain that our folks are feeling is even more acute given the current conditions that we're in. But I think this is a result of policy choices over the last few decades, that this affordability crisis, as we're seeing it, the pocketbook issues that people are feeling, is not because of the last year or two. It's been decades of disinvestment in our tax code, the disinvestment in really trying to reform our tax code to put more money in the people of the pockets of everyday working people. And so, you know, when I talked to a young brother tonight who said, tell them I'm 26 years old, a couple years out of college, and my generation doesn't think we'll ever own a home. Right? You know, when we think about renters today, nearly half of all renters are spending more than a third of their income on housing. You know, from the gas prices to now utilities are double the cost of inflation. And so things are not keeping pace with wages. Wages are not growing. And I think people are just having a real frustration with our lawmakers in responding to the acute pain that they're feeling in the economy, from housing, from groceries, from gas, from utilities. And we have an opportunity to really fix it, but there's no real agenda.
So, DaMareo, I live in New York. Mamdani ran on that. That's why he won. But Trump says that affordability is a Democratic hoax. What's your response to that?
I mean, obviously, someone who has never had to work an hourly wage could say something like that. But the people that we are around, the people we organize, you know, they're struggling. People are struggling. Like minimum wage been stuck at $7 an hour. We all know it needs to be closer to 25. We know that we've been keeping down people's ability to take care of their families. People can't save money, can't take trips. All the while, you know, what is up is corporate profits in the market, right? So people who are oriented to look at the market or to like corporate profits or CEOs like pay and their friends pay, yeah, they can say that it's a hoax. That's an argument they can make. But for regular working folks, you're looking at they're cutting healthcare, they are cutting SNAP. People are having a hard time finding jobs where I'm from. I'm from Akron, Ohio. And that's being felt there as well as in New York. When you think about Mamdani's election, like he really won that election and swept that election, talking about affordability, talking about how you could have child care, right? These things cost so much, rent, groceries, you know, that's what's really going on. I think it's easy when you're wealthy and grew up wealthy and your dad gave you a $4 million loan to talk about how affordability issues are a hoax.
Taifa, what impact will Trump's big ugly, he calls it beautiful, big beautiful, but what impact will his big ugly bill have?
Not much. I mean, there were a couple of crumbs that were thrown in there to really try to appease people. But the things that we saw, like the increase in the child tax credit, our friends over at EPI, the Economic Policy Institute, said that didn't even keep pace with inflation. So it should be even more support for the child tax credit. The tips on workers that he talked about all throughout the campaign, this administration, it's a gimmick, because at the end of the day, employers will be able to keep, you know, wages low with tip workers. And if you think about it, it's only tip workers make up 1.7% of the US workers. So again, it's a small population. It's not to discount the 3 million people who are tip workers, but again, and employers will get off on that. And I just believe that all the things that we could have done to have generational tax reform in this moment, when economic pain has been the top issue, they chose again to give more money to the wealthy. And again, we have to continue to fight for real tax reform that will make the rich pay their fair share and ensure that we have better opportunities for the working middle class to get more for what they're paying.
DaMareo, do you think affordability will be the primary issue in these midterms as they were 2 years ago during the presidential election?
I mean, yeah, I think affordability is going to be key for people in communities. I mean, even when you look at like the races in New Jersey 11 and Lily Mejia, she was talking about affordability and how to sweep election, like a surprise election. I mean, at the end of when we get to the end of this year, you're going to be looking at cuts to Medicaid, making more people, 16 million people are going to be left uninsured. SNAP benefits are going to get cut. Yeah, it's going to be the issue. I think there's really a problem when you can sit and say there's like a $2 billion a day war going on. You're not trying to feed kids. You're saying we're gonna insure, or we're gonna like provide these youth or kid bonds or something like that, when in fact really people need money. People need resources. They need money in their pocket. And when you're talking about tip wages, we can't forget, like, tip wages are rooted in post like Reconstruction. This is rooted in a slave culture, right? Like not paying a person a fair wage and deciding on if they're going to be able to make their rent based on how they treat you. That's like that's inappropriate, and it is rooted in the history of slavery and oppression in this country.
Yeah.
So
And speaking of which, Taifa, we gonna see what folk are really about, because the same people who voted for Trump with regards to affordability, are they going to vote against him and his party for on the same issue this time? What do you think?
That's the question of the day. And I think for us to hold them accountable for the claims and the promises that this administration made around addressing the pain. But again, we've been gaslit for the last couple of years, to your point about affordability being a hoax, not understanding what the word groceries means, like it's a new term. It's like the reality check that our lawmakers don't understand the everyday lived experience of our workers and of the middle class and of folks struggling to make ends meet. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to demonstrate some people power and push back. And I think this election cycle will be that opportunity to hold them to account. And to DaMareo's point, healthcare, the erosion of the ACA tax premiums are going to be big issues that people are going to feel in their pocketbook when those go away. So yes, this needs to be a mandate vote.
People said I'm opposed to Obamacare, but I like the Affordable Care Act. Is it
right?
Whatever works. DaMareo, are there examples of local communities? I mean, obviously, we're trying to do some things here in New York, but are there other examples of local communities that are addressing affordability on behalf of their citizenry?
Yeah, no, I think that we're really organizing. Our network of 47 affiliates and 35 states, DC, Puerto Rico, we're all grassroots organizers. We've been doing a lot of organizing and winning some things. Like you think about Make the Road New Jersey, who just recently passed a rent stabilization ordinance in Passaic. You think about New Justice Project, who were really in the wake of the ICE surge, insurgency, are now fighting for eviction moratorium. People are across the country, right? NYCC is working on campaigns of social housing in New York. There's other groups in New York coming together to think about, like, how do we have cap rent increases at 3.5%? So there are like people across the country. ACE, I'm out in California right now. There's a strong group out here called ACE that's been fighting for housing justice for years. And I think there's really just a moment where we can lean into this narrative, especially when you consider that the person who's governing the country has probably never pumped a tank of gas, right? Like, I often think about that. Like, this person probably has never like had to pump gas, and this is the person making policies for working families. We actually have to think about, how do we join together and take action? Things like, there's a group called Mayday Strong right now, and that's trying to have a large action against these companies and politicians who are funded by corporate interests. Right, like there's corporations like Palantir that's buying out our elections. This is why you can hear people talking about let's have kid bonds, but we're not talking about increasing the minimum wage.
That's right.
Yeah. Taifa, your closing thoughts and examples you're seeing where this affordability issue is being effectively combated.
Yes, I just want to applaud the good folks in New Mexico who just passed a universal child care bill. It took them 12 years to do it, but this is case in point where communities are paving the way when the federal government and the administration in DC is failing them to pass good national legislation that can be just a catalyst for what's happening in our states. And so our communities are doing it themselves. And I think right now, given what happened with the big ugly bill and the fact that now states are going to have to figure out how to fill some holes, they can either go the route of paying, changing their own tax codes to be able to pay for the public goods that we need and stop privatizing them and putting them in public hands. And then communities continue to pave the way and win on some of these issues like childcare, like new worker protections in Houston and Harris County. So the work is getting done, and we just need to continue to support our grassroots partners and the leaders in making sure that their demands can be heard.
DaMareo Cooper of Popular Democracy, Taifa Butler of Demos. I'll ask you like I asked my last guest, Errin Haines, because this affordability issue is real. Y'all got some money? You talking?
Some money.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe Errin, all of us.
I tell you what, if you know where Peter at, let's get it. I'll be Paul.
I know that's right. Love you both.
Thanks so much.
Joining us on the Signal Live, okay? All right, folks. The last Thursday, which is the first annual event in Selma, the mass meeting, that is where Bernard Lafayette, who was Dr. King's first lieutenant, sent into Selma in 1963. Dr. Bernard Lafayette used to always speak at the Thursday mass meeting at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Selma, Alabama. That very day, on the day of the mass meeting, March 5th, last Thursday, he too, like Reverend Jackson, outran us to glory. Here's our tribute to Bernard.
For 4 days in March of 1965, the eyes of the world were focused on a 45-mile stretch of U.S. Highway 80 between Selma and Montgomery, Alabama. 3,000 civil rights protesters were marching from the scene of bloody demonstrations to the state capitol. They had tried twice before to march this route, but they were stopped by state troopers. Finally, a federal judge gave them permission and ordered protection. They marched a little less than 10 miles a day. They camped on the roadside by night, always under the watchful eye of the National Guard. Dr. Bernard Lafayette, a lieutenant of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., helped organize the march and walked with the demonstrators.
Well, we thought, number one, that it was for safety reasons that we should march on the road, because this would prevent automobiles from coming alongside of us, throwing things out of the car and, slurs and that sort of thing. So it's for our own protection that we marched in the middle of the road. The other reason was because we were trying to make an important statement to the state of Alabama and to the South that somehow a price had to be paid for killing black folks.
For 4 days in March.
All right, we are back, and we're thankful to the team for putting that together. Allow me just to say that both Reverend Jackson and Bernard Lafayette were very, very dear friends and mentors of mine, and I do miss them terribly. Their contributions to our people are immeasurable. All right. We are going to invite you, as we get ready to sign off, to watch our previous episodes on YouTube, State of the People on YouTube, and follow us on social media at State of the People, PPL. And this is and has been the Signal Live. Thank you to everyone who helped put the show together tonight, everyone's hard work every week. Even though we air twice a month, this is still a full-time gig. We are going to always continue to tune into the pulse of the people. Join us again on March 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But before we sign off, let's have a word from Bishop Allison Abrams.
When things try to shake us, we have to be steadfast. When those things happen and it seems like we lost and we did not gain the victory that we had hoped, we have to be steadfast. When it seems as if those who are unjust continue to win against those who are just, we have to be steadfast. When it appears as if everything we do does not prevail, we have to remain steadfast. For the word tells us, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. And we know that our labor is not in vain. We need to make sure that we pass the word on to our neighbor that your labor is not in vain. Continue the work because the work is what is going to bring change in this world. Continue the work because the work is what's going to be a blessing to somebody who's in need. Continue to work because the work is what's going to help our brother and let them know that God is looking out for them. And so we cannot give up now. There's too much work to do. So I came to say, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. I am Bishop Allison Abrams, and that was a word.